Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, host of Operation GCD, along with Nick, the host of the Occult Rejects for another Fridaze. How you doing, Nick?
Hello. What's going on, sir? Oh, wait.
Doing well, good sir. Thanks for joining me here, as always, for another Fridaze. Always a good time linking up here to talk whatever conspiracy culture topics we
Definitely.
got on deck here tonight, along with our guests, Justin, host of Prometheus Lens podcast. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you, boys, for having me.
Of course.
Absolutely.
One thing I
Appreciate
did
you
want to,
joining us. I've only recently been introduced to your podcast, and even more recently been introduced to your book that apparently you just recently published, The Epic of Esau, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been out for about a month now.
oh,
Nice.
wow. Awesome.
So
Something I did want to ask you, just real quick. I'm so sorry, JJ. And I meant to
Sure.
ask you earlier. What made you pick the name to your podcast? I really like it. Actually.
Yeah, I've always been kind of a deep thinker with the whole symbolism and stuff like that. And when I read Joseph Campbell's book, the Hero of a Thousand Faces, that really opened up a lot of doors for me, and I seen things in a whole new light. And he talked about the hero's journey, and that's
Yep.
kind of what I coined the show. You know, I say it's the hero's journey. You have to go into the unknown and slay the dragon and rescue the damsel and hoard up the treasure, and then you come out on the other end as a hero. But in all those Greek stories, you acquire this prize of great wealth, this boon, but then you have to come back to humanity and share that prize of great wealth and start someone else on their hero's journey. So it's all about that. So Prometheus, he was the guy that stole the fire and shared it with humanity, and so it's the whole stealing of the fire and sharing it with humanity.
That's kind of like what I get at when I say like my experience was fucking with magic and crossing the abyss. It's not like these experiences aren't to come back to use it, manipulate, and mind fuck people and make money. It's to actually share my experience. That's kind of what I say. And I've always
Oh,
called the hero's journey basically a nice long tale explaining crossing the abyss.
oh yeah, and that's one of those things. Whether you realize it or not, everybody is on the hero's journey. We all have a call to adventure. It's just whether we accept that call to adventure or sit on the couch and deny it. But we all
There you
have that
go.
opportunity.
Yes, I agree. We all do.
I didn't realize there was a comparison between Crossing the Abyss and the hero's journey. I'm
Oh,
familiar
I
with
think so.
Campbell's. You think? Yeah, there's some strong correlations there.
Oh, for sure.
That
Yeah.
process.
I think
Yeah,
kind of like
tomato,
yeah.
what you call it,
Sure.
verbiage.
Well, I was wondering, was Joseph Campbell an occultist who told that in more of a fictional kind of setting?
Oh, I don't know. I've
Told that
heard of
same
Well,
kind of
he was definitely not a Christian, but he was talking about how you have this trope throughout history, and he was talking about all the different dying and resurrecting gods, and
Yep.
how you always have this archetype, how you have this foundling, someone that doesn't realize who they are, and they're someone special, whether they're uh, a prince or a queen, and they've been raised by someone that's not their father, and they don't know who they are, and then they get this call to adventure by a wise sage, and they go into the unknown on this adventure, and they rise back to power, and the redemption, the Lion King. All these stories have this same plot line and twist, so that's what he was calling it. It was the hero of a thousand faces.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, George Lucas was such a fan he had him on the set of Star Wars. There, you'll see that
Yeah,
same story you just described in the story of Luke Skywalker.
yep, and that's why it was so successful, because he had all the archetypes and storylines, plots, and twists of Joseph Campbell's
Yep.
story in there.
No, for sure, it's well written characters, well developed for sure.
Hmm.
And Campbell kind of built upon Jung's archetypes, right? I mean, that's a lot of
Yes.
kind of the godfather, if you will, of archetypes.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
it
One
is
hundred
interesting.
percent.
Yeah, stories you see it play out. I mean, obviously, in these days here in a post-meme world, 2024, as I like to call it, where things were used to be memes are now reality. I mean, you see these things in fiction working out in reality and vice versa. So Campbell does. It was really enlightening to me too when I read that stuff from Campbell about how these things play out in all these stories throughout history as well.
Yeah, and C.S. Lewis too. I like how he said it because Campbell was not a Christian, but C.S. Lewis was a Christian, and because even in the
Was he?
Heroes of a Thousand Faces, he said that Christ was another one of those tropes and another one of those archetypes. He was just another one of those, heroes of a thousand faces. But C.S. Lewis said that Christ was the myth that became fact. And he had a whole storyline and twist to that too. And Louis Marcos, he's a Greek philosopher and scholar. He actually wrote a book called The Myth Made Fact, and kind of dived into C.S. Lewis's work and stuff on that. But his was kind of in your face. When you read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the lion that sacrifices himself and resurrects. That's pretty obvious and in your face there. That wasn't too esoteric.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the stories in the books. I never really read them. When I was a child, I related it too much to the Wizard of Oz. Witches and lions and stuff. I was like, I'm out on both of these. I don't need any witches or lions in my life. So, do you cover this on Justin? Do you cover this on Prometheus Lens, or are these some of the topics you cover there?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a huge gambit of things. I tell everybody it's everything from Jesus to aliens to the Bible to conspiracy theories to archetypes. I even had a show that was just on archetypes that went through Disney characters and popular books and Carl Jung's archetypes and things like that. So it's a wide gambit of things. It's all about the hero's journey and looking into things and from a different perspective and self-growth and things like that. So it's a large gambit of things.
Nice. And your most recent effort is the Epic of Esau.
Yeah, it's my first book, man. I tell people I was a wild child, man. People that knew me growing up, I was in and out of jail and drugs and wild, man. I was never a studious guy. I never liked to read. It was like in 2012, man, a switch flipped in me, and I just started reading all the time and studying stuff. And so if you talk to somebody, back in my high school days and said, oh, yeah, Justin's going to, read thousands of books and do a podcast and talk about all this, cool stuff and write a book, they'd laugh. And I'd laugh at them too.
Sure.
That's something I never thought I would do.
You would be locked up. He ain't doing that shit.
Yeah, exactly. If he's alive, he'll be in prison.
So, whenabouts in 2012 did you meet this revelation?
Honestly, I was doom scrolling one day, and I stumbled across. You guys familiar with Trey Smith from God in a Nutshell?
Not yet.
I actually just stumbled across him on YouTube, and he was talking about fallen angels coming down and breeding with the daughters of men and creating these hybrid Nephilim giants, and that they corrupted the land, and that they were, cannibalism, and they were eating the people and corrupting the land and doing all this stuff, and that's why it got so bad that God had to bring the flood. And talking about aliens and demons, just all this, crazy stuff, and all this stuff that he says that was in the Bible. And I was like, man, this dude's crazy. I'm from East Tennessee. I'm from East Tennessee. It's the Bible Belt. I was raised in the church from the time I was a little boy. I thought I knew these stories in the Bible really well, and I'm like, this dude's full of crap. So I started pulling out my Bible, started looking through this stuff, and man, sure enough, all that stuff was right there the whole time. It was just I fell victim to the Mandela effect. I relied too heavily on the teachings of my pastor and the people that was telling me these stories, and I wasn't looking into them myself. So then I was like, my curious mind, man, I was like, I have to know. So I just started this journey, this hero's journey, man. I have to know.
That's awesome. No, I totally know what you mean there, because I actually came to a different route, similar revelations, around the same time there in 2012. Looking back, I think I told Nick this story one day recently when we were frisbee golfing. When I was down passing through Nick's neck of the woods, down in not far from Tennessee, North Carolina. There, we were introduced him to frisbee golf. I'm not sure.
Oh, I love it.
Sport, but
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, that's big here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was.
Well, where you
I
at
was
in North
saying, I was like,
Carolina?
you know,
I'm
this
right
whole-
on the edge of East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. I'm like, I'm like 1 hour away from Asheville.
Oh,
you're in
really?
the flood zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
How
place
far
got
away
washed
are you
out, man.
from Nashville itself?
Asheville.
Yeah, I know,
North
but are you in
Carolina.
Tennessee? Where do you live, actually? My bad.
Yeah, I'm like right on the eastern tip of Tennessee, like Greenville.
Oh, okay. That's fucked up. I'm in Greenville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Greenville versus Greenville.
That's funny. But
Oh,
mine,
shoot.
you just add an extra E. It's Greene.
All right.
Those I got you. The British spelling.
It's not cool anymore. Damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was telling Nick, I was like looking back at this whole conspiracy culture idea of the end of the world in 2012, right? You know what I mean? And you know, you may have some particular views from a more Christian perspective. I grew up Mormon, technically, you know, Christians, but you know, when Joseph Smith's the number one character in your religion, it's, you know, not really Jesus Christ is kind of, you know, coming second, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they call themselves Christians, right? And technically, then there's a guy near the planet Kolob, but that's a different story altogether. So I don't want to get into those dynamics necessarily, but what I'm saying is you probably have a different perspective, is, you know, with this whole end of the world stuff in an apocalyptic fashions, or the term apocalypse and whatnot, because you know the whole everyone was saying back in 2012, oh, you know, the Mayan calendar nonsense that got heavily perpetrated through well-financed shows on television, by the way, you know, freaking people out on that whole nonsense. But nonetheless, like. That was December 21st, right? It was the solstice that's supposed to occur. And I just looking back, I think it's kind of funny because December 14th, 2012 was a very revelatory, you know, time for me. The, you know, very, very much like an apocalyptic event in my life, with just, you know, suddenly I was struck with not understanding anything and wanting to understand everything kind of deal. And that was after watching the school shooting there in Connecticut. Right. And I hail from that region of Connecticut. So, you know, it was very compelling, you know, when I first saw it. And I served 20 years in the Air Force military police, and I was serving at the time. And you know, nothing sat right with me, you know, immediately upon watching that stuff on the TV. So, you know, I was immediately in a different world.
Yeah, a lot of people did, man. A lot of people that I talked to, 2012 was just like a flip
Right.
of the switch for a lot of people, man.
Seems like
I hate to use the new agey, you know, term, but it's like the Great Awakening kind of thing.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
and the
fellow
combination-
hillbilly, Marky Mark. Yeah,
kinda-
the twang gave it away, man.
You know, in like an ancient Greek apocalyptic kind of sense, you know, the revelation of, like, you know, kind of everything, right? You know, I don't know what your kind of thoughts on the apocalypse are. I know, again, you said, you know, being in the Bible Belt, the term apocalypse can mean some real fire and brimstone type of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's pretty crazy, and it's kind of relevant, and I just did a show recently with a gal that I'll be releasing in a couple weeks. But 2025, man, you know, I mean, I hate those. I'm not setting dates. I'm not a date setter, and you know, but 2025 is going to be a crazy year, and especially like when you look at prophecy, the Bible, and even like science and stuff, like the text at Qumran, the Essenes, they had their own calendar, and they said that 2025, you're coming into the final Jubilee. You know, a Jubilee is 50 years. And they think that they divided history up in ages. And they said that, that we are now in the final age. And that at every age in the final Jubilee, there was some kind of earth-shaking, you know, event that happened. So the end of the first age was the flood. The second one was the Tower of Babel, and then the next one was the coming of Christ and the destruction of the temple, And this final one, it's up for grabs what it's going to be. But in Revelation,
dice.
you hear about one of the seals. This it sounds like an asteroid coming, and it's called wormwood. And it says that wormwood hits the earth, and a third of the forests are burned, a third of the waters are spoiled, and all this stuff. And it puts it right smack dab in the middle of
Is that the same
the
wormwood
Great
that's
Tribulation.
That's the moon from Mars. Is that the same wormwood, or is that a different one? Because
It might be a different one.
Okay.
But because we don't know what it is, it describes it in the Book of Revelation. It sounds, like a
That's right. Yeah,
asteroid or a comet.
Like asking that question.
Yeah, but back a few years ago, NASA announced, and it leaked. Okay, it wasn't supposed to get out. It leaked that they had found an asteroid on a collision course for Earth, and this was probably around 2000. Somewhere between 2012 2015, and that it was going to hit Earth, and it was going to be like a world killer.
Right.
And it leaked. People started freaking out. Well, like the next day, and they said that they named it Apophis. And Apophis is a name of an Egyptian chaos god. Yes, Meanie knows about it. And this chaos dragon god in the Egyptian lore chased the sun and tried to devour the sun. It was a sun eater. And so it's crazy that they named this comet that was on a collision course for Earth Apophis. And so it leaks out, right? Now, the next day, they come out and say, oh, it was a mistake. Yes, there is a comet coming our way, and we named it Apophis. But our mathematicians made a mistake, and it's going to come by us, and in 2025 we'll be able to visually see it with the naked eye, but it's not going to be nowhere near close enough to hit us. It's going to be a near miss. But it's funny that after that happens, Donald Trump gets elected, Space Force is initiated, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, everybody's obsessed with getting back out into space again. I think we have a whole Armageddon type thing going on.
You think Doge will ever
movie?
NASA or Space Force?
Yeah, I don't know, but I just thought that was crazy that happened. Then they now Bezos and Elon, SpaceX, we're obsessed with getting out into space. And I thought about that movie Armageddon, where they launch out and they land on this asteroid and try to blow it to smithereens to keep it from hitting Earth.
Bruce Willis save the day.
This may sound like silly, but I have started to question because of like just seeing certain things with the asteroids, even matching like certain people's names that are getting popular or just weird shit coming after they announce them. I have wondered, my opinion, I do think NASA is just all. I think if you're an occultist and you've had a magical experience, you might have somewhat of an idea of what they're actually showing you and telling you. It's completely coded and deeply occult, I think. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
I do think when they tell you about these meteors, those are almost like foreshadowing what is about to come, or something's about to kick off, or things are about to change, like, or something's in a working. Because like you go right about that, and like even we had that Rex 84 come, and all of a sudden we had like tons of weird, true crime and just weird shit going on, and like Gilgo Beach all of a sudden popped back up out of nowhere, and the guy's Rex. And there's even Rex is even in the OTO. If you get to, I think, like a certain degree, Rex is part of your name, which is king. So just to me, so you start wondering like what's going on here with these names and the numbers, and why does shit seem to get weird after you talk about some asteroid or meteor that's in the sky? Like, I don't know.
I totally agree with you, man. If you think about it. Oh, what's that? Go ahead, Justin.
Even with the Friday the 13th, because with the dates and stuff that they give for this Apophis, they said that, in 2025, we're supposed to be able to visually, see it with the naked eye or with a telescope. But they predicted, the mathematicians, that it was supposed to hit Earth. I'm trying to think. Friday the 13th in April, I think, of 2029.
Yeah, April 13th, 2029. Yep.
Yeah. And So yeah, it's pretty interesting. So a lot of biblical prophecy people are saying, well, Wormwood's right in the middle of the tribulation. So if we take that date and back up 3.5 years, then boom, we have the beginning of the Great Tribulation, and things. So I mean, it's interesting to say the least.
No, I mean, it's certainly interesting because we do, as Nick was pointing out, we put a lot of money into these programs from a tax-paying public, to NASA and Space Force. And the way I look at all these things with space is, yes, I think it's deeply occultic stuff or occultism stuff because on a surface level, just with the names, but also, I mean, every aspect of space seems to be that with all these ancient alien cargo cults. I mean, look at the Heaven's Gate cult; they were going to jump a ride on a comet. You know what I mean? They got on the robes and the Nikes to do it.
Fun. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Something I wanted to add before we get off, Apophis. I'm stuck on it though. Fun fact: I don't know if it's true, but it's supposedly the word around the street is that when Churchill started using the peace sign, Crowley gave him that as the sign of Apophis.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, to defeat.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That you make. These are actually in the ritual of the hexagram, the lesser ritual of the hexagram. You will do the symbols of the LVX, and one of them is like this, and then you go like you make a swastika to show the morning of Isis, and then to show the rising of the beast. You make that, and Crowley was telling him that would trump the swastika. But I mean, you're using all those things in some ritual that was prior to World War II.
Yeah, he very much popularized the peace symbol too. Churchill did. He was big on the media campaigns with some of that stuff. The whole whatever that is. They make those shirts. Whatever. There was a whole political popularized sign that's now a popular shirt these days. Eat some work on or whatever. I don't. It was a campaign to get folks to go back to work while they're getting actively bombed by Nazis. And that's what I'm saying. Churchill was good at those.
Be calm, work on.
There you go. Yeah. That's interesting. I've long assumed Churchill was into some occult behavior just based on a Society of Cincinnati membership.
That's word on the street. I mean, I don't know. It is interesting.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of occult stuff going on here with these. I mean, in various, I think, rituals, varying sizes and shapes, varying folks that do it. Because there's not an aspect that, like, when I look back at like all these space programs and just the idea of rockets and the idea of space travel, they came from science fiction writers who were all occultists. Jack
Parsons, rockets.
Jack Parsons. They were friends with Jack Parsons. They were friends with L. Ron Hubbard, right? This is. These are the people like not Jules Verne. I guess you could technically say he was the first guy to write about, space travel, but it was really Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov. These guys are part of the sci-fi writers club of L. Ron Hubbard. These were according to their editor of that club, a fellow by the name of Forrest Ackerman. He says they were all doing Jack's thing, the OTO, and then L. Ron created a new thing, and they were all doing L. Ron's thing. So. Seemingly, they went from OTO to Scientology, but what I'm saying is they're clearly occultists within this group, and which is why I found it strange during the Apollo 11 launches, they would have those two men on TV being like the scientific advisor to the launch on live TV. One was on like ABC, I think another on NBC, Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. Consequently enough, both men have some real diddling issues around them too, by the way. That whole group does. So these are some of the problems on and above the Nazis. Now go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say a guy, it's a buddy of mine that you would probably have some really good conversations with and thoroughly enjoy. Tim Constantine from 6th Century podcast. I've had him on the show and talking about Nazi Germany and occultism, and he's really big into the stuff that you're talking about. And he was talking
on
one of the shows I had him. Yeah,
nice.
That's what he was talking about. The
I'm actually going on the show.
Rising.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I definitely want to get him on again.
And all the occult sex magic and stuff going on. Even with Anana, there's a lot of stuff with Anana going on.
Oh, that's what it was. He came on for Inanna and all that. Yeah, and all that stuff. We had him on. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, that was
So,
good.
Yeah.
well, you're very familiar with ancient Egypt, right, Justin? You know, that's, you said you go into a lot of history, alternative history topics there.
Yeah.
So, you know, so you're familiar with like they revere the obelisk in some sort of, almost sex magic kind of fashion, right? As some sort of
well,
missing phallus.
It's the penis of Osiris.
Right. But you can almost, to me, I kind of look at that and I look at these rockets, right? They look like big obelisks that they had a sex magic ritual to create the fuel to go in the rockets, right? So I just view it all as a one big sex magic ritual with a giant dick statue. They're just launching off into the ocean. But yeah, I do think it is a very old kind of culty religion. When I say culty religion, this, these concepts of go back to ancient Egypt. I think with these same concepts.
Well, yeah, and even that same circle of guys you were talking about, and Aleister Crowley, they were obsessed with the ancient Egyptian, occult stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The whole, what was it, that religion that he established? It was
Rima.
all about Ra,
Oh,
wasn't it? Like the Egyptian god Ra that Aleister Crowley was so obsessed
that was
with.
Horus. What I mean,
Oh.
This is just my opinion. Horus, Ra, and Taurus is all the same motherfucker. It's just a different time in the fucking story. It's the hero at different times in his.
I was gonna say, there you go. It's the hero's journey.
But that's just my opinion. But yeah, it was. I don't know. You may not know this. I actually was in the OTO for about 6 years.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was Horus. That's who you're pledging your allegiance to.
Well, that's even like the Masons. I did some studying on them and actually read the. I'm having a brain fart now, but that big red book from the 30s, the father of the Masons.
God,
The Secret Destiny of America.
Not Albert Pike.
No, Morals and Albert Pike, Morals and
All
Dogma.
right, I was trying to think of a different dude. All right.
But they were talking about, the Scottish Rite and how, once you get into there and you realize, the God you're worshiping, is Lucifer, the light bearer, and all the symbolism all going back to ancient Egypt. And even, I read a book, it was, what is it? It's right back here. Fires in the Minds of Men. And that was a good one, but it was talking about how the revolutionary, the founding fathers, took the fires from the Revolutionary War, but they moved it. It was the fires from Baal in Egypt moving into the New World, and they carried that flame from that altar into the New World. And when you look at all the symbolism in the Capitol, all the pentagrams, like you talked about, you have that big penis right in the middle of the Washington D.C. and you have the vaginal way going straight down to the Capitol, and the Capitol is the big dome. It's the womb of Isis, and then certain times of day that shadow goes down through there and enters and penetrates the womb, impregnating the womb of Isis. You have the same thing in the Vatican. I mean, it's everywhere.
No, it really is. It really is. And you're talking about the layout of Washington, D.C. You're talking the Society of Cincinnati. They're the secret society that started America. They're also French. They're the ones behind the French Revolution. So Pierre L'Enfant was a Frenchman. He was over here helping design D.C. along with Washington and a couple others. But, and there's certainly a lot of mysterious occult stuff and architecture built into D.C. There's zero question about that. But the one thing I like to say about George Washington's giant dick statue is he didn't leave a note in his will saying 100 years, 120 years from now, build me a giant dick statue in the middle of my city. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It begs the question, why do they do these things, right? Like, what is this? What is the force behind these things, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the spirits or of the age and pulling the strings of the puppeteers, you know what I mean? And I know not everybody's a Christian, but like from a Christian viewpoint, and a lot of people don't realize, but there's many gods. I know some Christians that makes them recoil, but I mean, I'm sorry, man, but you need to read the book that you claim that is your book, because it says in there, it says you will have no other gods before me. I am a jealous God. And talking about not sacrificing to these other gods. I mean, it's repeatedly, over and over and over. And when you get into like Deuteronomy 32, for instance, that's a retelling of the Tower of Babel, because everybody gets hung up on the tongues being divided. But when you get in there, it says not only was the tongues divided, it says the peoples, the nations were divided amongst the sons of God. And in Hebrew, that's the B'nai Ha Elohim. And every time that word is used, it's talking about divine beings. So when you get into Psalms 82, that's who that's who they are talking about. It says, "How long will you rule unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? You desire to live the eternal life, but you shall die and fall like any prince." It's talking to these rebellious sons of God that was ruling over the nations and accepted worship as gods and rebelled. And that's why you have so much wickedness in the world today and whispering into the ears of the world leaders and accepted worship. And that's why you have, all this stuff. And when you go into Genesis, when it lists them out right there, in Deuteronomy also, it lists 70. And the Septuagint lists 72 nations. And when you go to Washington, when you look at that rotunda, that, what do they call it? The apotheosis of Washington.
Yeah, Apotheosis of Washington.
He's sitting there, and there's all these Greek gods with him, and he's ascending to godhood. Well, there's a bunch of stars around that too. A lot of people don't take the time to count that. There's 72 stars there, representing the 72 sons of God, the B'nai Ha Elohim, that God divided up the land and the nations. So, I mean, all that stuff is kind of hidden in there, right in plain sight.
No, they got some deep occult, especially Washington. He was definitely an occultist. There's no question of these things. Yeah, that was
that even applies to or what do you call it, astronomy too, because you have what they call it, the precession of the equinoxes. Because when you look at that, it takes exactly 72 years to move even 1 degree. So, I mean, there's so many layers to all these subjects that we're talking about tonight and that we're fascinated with. It's just you have to peel them back. I mean, there's so many people that say, "Oh, no, it's this," or "No, it's that." No, man, it's this and that, man. I mean, all this stuff is multi-layered.
Yeah. Something I want to ask, just maybe both of yours opinion, I guess, is with, talking about gods. Do you ever, sometimes I do wonder, I'll use nowadays as a perfect example. And in my opinion, people are very maybe nervous, scared, or afraid, or uncertain of the future. And I really do think they're starting to worship politicians as an answer. Now, that's a God that is human created themselves and not really a God. They're only one because we believe that they are. So do you ever wonder if something like that, where it's not even like some other just entity with a name, where they're actually just falling in love with things before God?
I think so. No, I totally agree with you. You actually kind of read my mind. That's what I was saying here that's what I was going to say here. So there's an element of America, folks who have been running America that revere George Washington as a cult leader, which is why in 1865 you see them sanctioning things like this. Again, George didn't leave that in his will, saying, "Make me a god in the halls of Congress." So I think it's an old, it's an old Roman, godhead. The state head is your god. The Caesar is the god. It's an old concept.
No, just sometimes
it could be even older. You know what I mean? Could be even older.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. You have people that just get so puffed up in their pride, and like you said, they think themselves as a god, or they have people around them puffing them up, and they actually believe the lie eventually. And even with Donald Trump today, I voted for the man for the policy, but
I did for the first time.
Yeah, but do I like the man personally? No. I mean, I think he's pompous. He lies. Stretches the truth, and that's being nice about it. But it's like the first go around, I was financially in a better position than I'd ever been in my life. As far as like a Christian, the policy wise, he was pro-Christian policy, whether he was, acting Christianly or not. I mean, that's beside the point. So, but there's certain people, Christians and non-Christians, that paint him as a Messiah. He's the savior, and stuff like that. He can never do no wrong and things like that. I'm not in that camp. I don't put no man to that kind of status.
That's a good point. So let's get down to brass tacks on that subject then, Justin. When is Donald Trump going to unleash the power of the Ark of the Covenant that I saw at the end of Indiana Jones?
He's not going to, because he'll kill the Nazis and he's friends with them.
Oh, damn it.
Fuck, come on, man.
This is in his this is in Mar-a-Lago. Y'all familiar with this one? Not James O'Keefe. It's the first picture that came up when I googled it. But the Ark of the Covenant, a gold replica. Well, a gold replica. I'd argue maybe Donald Trump's got the real one. He's just kind of sitting out in plain sight.
That's not biblically accurate.
It's an orgone box.
Okay,
it's a throne.
The Ark of the Covenant's a throne. Okay, so Indiana Jones was wrong.
Yes. I think I got a picture of it.
So maybe that's the one from the set he's got there then.
I had a guy on my show, Leon Southgate, a guy fucks with orgone, and he swears he thinks that the Ark of the Covenant was actually kind of like an orgone charger. He says, because like you can even create kind of the cloud that will show up that they say, like I think in the Bible.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let me pull it up here on a bigger shot. I've never heard of this. You'll have to tell us about this, Justin. I'm interested for sure.
The Mercy Seat.
Yeah.
This guy's on.
Yeah, the Mercy Seat.
Oh, the Mercy, my bad. Said Mary.
Yeah, when you go and you look at the descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant, it says the wings of the cherubim come out and that God sits right there. Yeah, perfect. It's a throne. It's where God, sits, and the wings are the backrest.
Yo, look at that triangle. That's fucking sick as shit right there.
I think that's more of a biblically accurate
That
depiction.
makes more sense. Now I'm starting to wonder, like, on tarot cards, those dudes, after like they get off the chariot, they're sitting in something. I wonder if it's like more of like representing of that.
And even the Ezekiel visions, where it talks about the chariot of God and the cherubim that are surrounding them, and you have the description of the four living creatures. It says that it had the eyes round about. In Hebrew, word for eyes, the ayans, it can also be used to describe stars. Something that's shining and glimmering. So, and when you look at the four living creatures, what are those? Those are the four cardinal points to the Babylonian zodiac. So I think this is an astronomical type thing. And when you go to Revelation, where it talks about the throne of God, it says, you had the throne in the center, and you had the four living creatures, and then the 24 elders around. So I think like a 30,000-foot view looking down, what is that trying to say? It's saying that God, and it says that the earth was his footstool. So you have the throne, his feet on earth, so it's showing that God is at the center of all time and space and matter and in control, because his throne is in the center of earth. The 24 elders represent the 24 hours in a day, because even Jesus said in the New Testament, is there not 12 hours in a day? So that showed you they knew there was 24 hours in a day. And then you had the four living creatures, which was the four cardinal points of the Babylonian zodiac, and that's space. So there's God's throne in the center of all time, space, and matter.
Oh, that's these are all brand new concepts to me, but I like it. I mean, not as much as I like the nuclear device that I thought the Ark of the Covenant might be, or some sort of a weapon of mass destruction. I'm sorry, a weapon of mass destruction. But I like this too, though.
But it makes you wonder, because like in old depictions, you see a lot of gods always sitting on chairs, but it's on the side.
Well, there's always a throne.
It's on the
Right.
side. It's never like that. It's never from that angle. It's always just on the side. It looks like a chair.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
I love that triangle. It's interesting you brought up the eyes too, and the stars. You said eyes and stars. That's some.
Well,
I mean, I always get into like when I fuck, when I fucked with magic, I always say that it starts off with a star. And there
Yeah.
is like the whole thing with every man and every woman is a star. I mean, Crowley says that, but
Mm.
before it turns into an eclipse, it looks like a star. So that is interesting.
And in the Bible, all the angelic hosts are often referred to as stars. Like in the book of Job, when Job starts questioning God, God finally gets fed up. What does he say? He says, "Where were you when I hung the stars and did this and did that and then laid the foundations? Where were you when I did this, did that?" He said,
right.
"When the morning stars, the sons of God, sang for joy at the sight of creation." So it's comparing the sons of God, the angelic host, to stars. And even in Ezekiel's vision, everybody talks about the wheels within wheels that they think is a UFO. It says in there too that the eyes were round about, stars were round about, and it's wheels within wheels. You take a time-lapse camera and look at the fixed North Pole, that's exactly what you have, wheels within wheels.
It's like the orphanum too, right? Doesn't it kind of describe like that? It's like
The
wheels
what
with
now?
wheels that had the orphanum, the angels, the orphanum.
Mm,
Yeah, they're like wheels with like wheels, and they all have eyes on the wheels too, wrapping around it as they spin.
yeah. Yep.
Nice, interesting shit, dude. Yeah,
I
I'm
think
really
The
that's
big
orbs.
stuff.
I think the eye suggestion you were talking about there, Nick, and the stars. I think that's a good jumping off point to get into some of the mound stuff that Justin is deeply interested in, because I'm a big mound guy myself here, Justin. I've been studying the mounds for I'm a Mormon, so technically it's kind of been embedded in my life most of the time, but I've been actively kind of after these mounds for about 20 some years now, close to it.
And,
But yeah,
there's actually some
I don't
Mormon
really get into the
overlap.
religious kind of theology, philosophies, but I'm familiar with it. And the one you were talking about before the show with the eyes and the stars, and again, forgive me for not remembering the name, because again, I'm not good with those aspects of the mounds. Not my approach to them, not my interest necessarily, but I do find it fascinating. So, because there obviously was a religious and ritual aspect to these mounds, right?
Yeah, because we were talking pre-roll. I had Dr. Greg Little on the show, and we were talking about his book, The Pathway of Souls.
There we
And
go.
he's a big mound expert. He's been to probably every mound in North America, or at least the documented ones, at least. And so he's well versed on it, and he's interviewed and talked to a lot of Native American elders and things like that. And in his book, he talks about how the Native American rituals that they would do at these mounds. These mounds is where they would bury their dead, and it said that when they would die, they would either, like in the wintertime, they would hold the bodies back, or bury them and regather the bones at a certain time, and they would wait till the stars, because the stars and constellations were a very important part to the pathway of souls and making sure that the spirits made their journey to heaven. And he said that they would wait until the constellation Scorpius would be below the horizon, because when they would launch the soul off into heaven, it was their belief that the scorpion would take its tail and snatch the soul out of the air and keep it from reaching heaven. But they would go to these mounds and these hinges and these earthwork complexes and perform these rituals, and that they would have a huge bonfire, and they would take the bones or the bodies, if it was a fresh body, and they would place whatever they had into the fire, and they would dance and sing, perform their rituals, and send the spirit off into the air. And he said that they would do this when the constellation of Orion was directly on the horizon line. And they said the ancient thought was that this was a hand. So the three stars, let me get right here, was the wrist. and that it was a hand, and that in the center of the hand was an eye. So where you see all this, symbology of the eye and the hand, this was a Native American thing, and they called this the Ogie, and it was a portal for the soul, and they would send the soul off, and the soul would go through this Ogie, and the belief was, and this shows you they knew the stars, that it would drop below the horizon and come back on the other side, and that it would release the soul, and they would release it into the Milky Way, and that the constellation Cygnus, which was a bird, would grab it and fly it to the other side and into heaven. So there was this whole Native American belief of spirituality and ritual, and the mounds and even the constellations were all involved. It was really cool to hear the thought process and the beliefs of the Native Americans, and with astrology and astronomy all wrapped into it.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. How do you spell that? Okogie or Ogogi?
Yeah, Ogie. I think it's Oggie, I believe, or Ogie. It's something similar to that.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up a picture of it, because it is something. Like I said, I don't know if I've been to as many mounds as old Dr. Little there, but I've been to, if not 1,000 plus, damn near.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of these museums and sites. They have a lot of artifacts. A lot of times, the artifacts that were, produced from some of these mounds and archaeological and anthropological studies there in years past are, usually in like a little shop or museum at these sites. In fact, you can go to a Walmart in northern Georgia, not far from you, and go visit a mound museum inside the Walmart. That was the result of that was the disposition from a lawsuit, because Walmart wanted to build on that mound. And the natives were like, you better not. And then the federal court was like, you guys can do it. But they came to a negotiated settlement. We'll put a mound museum inside the Walmart. But that symbol is literally everywhere that you're describing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's across the cultures and time within these mounds, because there's various, groups. I don't know if you want to get into that discussion of the Hopewells and the Adinas and the kind of the idea that we even know anything about these people just because we assign a name to them. Right, and the names we've assigned to them are not names they gave themselves. But
if you type in rattlesnake disc, that's a really good one to show the viewers and listeners. That's one they found down in Alabama, and it's a disc, and right in the center of it is the huge Ogie, and it actually has the Aurora Borealis snake biting its own tail around it, and it's a calendar disc.
Right. So what do you think? Well, how do you think this spawned so many cultures in time then, right? Like, because again, we're talking Adena, Hopewell, Mississippi cultures, right? We're talking thousands of years through these, allegedly, right? Through these mounds being constructed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is just, it's one of those things. It's when you see it traveling through so many cultures and throughout time. I mean, there has to be something to it. It's a oral tradition just passed throughout the ages, man.
Where's it at today, though? You think then? You know what I mean? Do you think this tradition still exists? Because I often wonder
that. There might be a small remnant of people, still practicing it, but it's one of those things. It's like the rise and fall of certain civilizations and customs and people groups. I'm trying to think. Hunter McConnell, I had him on the show, and we actually did an entire episode on this disc. There's so much stuff involved in this little disc, and I can't remember all of it right now. But he talked about that Ogie, and it's an astronomical calendar, and he took a map of the stars and superimposed it, and it lines up perfect with Orion pointing toward like the North Star with the middle fingertip, just all the different things, even the notches on the side align to certain things. It's pretty amazing. And that horned serpent has something to do with South America and the corn gods, because even the rattlers, if you look at the rattlers are corn
Hearts.
seeds.
Oh,
Because he started showing all these different depictions of South America, and that's what those are. Those are corn kernels.
thought that was a chef's
No,
hat.
No, I think that's well. You're pointing out some really great things. I want to ask you about too with the Serpent Mound. And again, it's one of the things, or some of the things, that I've always found most fascinating about these mounds is, you mean to tell me someone in the event of Serpent Mound here, you mean to tell me somebody roughly 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, knew could build this mound, and it still lasts today. But it also worked as a calendar. It read the night sky, it read the seasons, it read the equinoxes, the solstices, all of these bends and curves, and everything in here is encoded with the ability to read the sky, and basically a calendar for the known universe, the visible universe.
Yeah. I had Jeff Wilkinson on the show, or Wilson, sorry.
Yep.
Even the bends are lunar calendars.
Yep.
I mean, it maps everything: the sun, the moon.
Everything.
The open mouth points straight towards the summer solstice. I mean, it's just crazy at all the things. And yeah, like you said, we're to believe that these ancient people done this, and you can't even appreciate this thing unless you're in the air.
Right.
I think this
Right.
is, call me a conspiracy theorist, but this was something given to them. Same thing when you go down to South America, when you look at ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a blend of several different plants that there's no way that they stumbled across this. There's millions of different fauna down there that they could mix together and come up with this concoction. So if you just took the DMT by itself, your acids in your stomach would kill it, so you wouldn't get the hallucinogenic effect from it. There's only one specific plant that bonds with that DMT and fights off the acids in your stomach to allow the absorption of that DMT. So then you get the perfect match of these two plants. Then you have the whole processing of it. They have to meet it out. They have to boil it at the right temperature and pull it out and prepare it. I mean, this is too perfect to be, made by mistake or by random. And then the people tell everybody that, the sky people, told them this, gave it to them. So take the people's word for it, man. And Darby, in his book, The Cosmic Serpent, he lived with these people for like a decade or more. Took this ayahuasca, on a, I wouldn't say daily basis, but he took it often. So much so that he documented everything and wrote a book, The Cosmic Serpent, and talked about every time he took it, he saw this cosmic serpent. And that's what all of them say that they have encounters with. And that's the one that gave them this concoction. And without fail, all these people talk about this encounter with this cosmic serpent. And then you have this serpent up here in North America. Throughout the world, you have this serpent imagery everywhere. And like I said, we all have our preconceived notions and our filters that we filter things through. And mine, I have a biblical worldview.
Sure.
The book of Enoch tells us that the fallen angels came down, bred with the daughters of men, were worshipped as gods, and they gave humanity forbidden knowledge. And it's a common theme throughout the world. The Native Americans say the star people came down, gave them knowledge, stole their women, and perverted the land. The Greeks have Prometheus. He rebelled against Zeus and the gods, stole the fire, gave it to humanity. You have the Nagas with the Hindus. I mean, I could go on all day long with the same story, just different caveats and names to it. And they say that amongst the things that they gave them was the reading of the heavens and astronomical signs, mathematics, the cutting of roots in pharmakeia. I mean, it's just, to me,
And this
that
is the knowledge that was
answers
bestowed upon the
everything.
Nephilim.
This was the knowledge that the fallen angels had and gave to their offspring, and their offspring passed it on into humanity, and that's why you have all these ancient enigmas.
And the offspring are supposed. Is this supposed to be the Nephilim? Is that supposed to be the offspring of the?
Yes, the
Yep.
giants, and that's why in North America you have all the stories of the
There you
red-haired
go.
giants, the CTK, and all the the natives talk about they warred against these people.
Buried at the bottom of these ancient mounds, right? The Adena mounds, the oldest ones.
Yeah,
So, what do you think of this one,
even
Justin? Is this a snake? You think, in your opinion, is this a serpent?
yeah. I mean, I think it's the cosmic serpent,
Not the horn
and
god, but the cosmic serpent, right? There's, seems to be there's a
yeah,
delineation there from the way you're describing it.
yeah, I believe so. And after going there this last summer and filming and talking to some locals and some experts there, the native belief, because a lot of people want to say that this snake is eating an egg, which right now, I mean,
Right.
it does. It looks like an egg. But when you're there, there's a small, like triangular mound at the head of that thing that you can't really see in this picture, but it's there.
Right here.
And then on the sides, you find some other little mounds that they put the walkways over. But
Yep.
you can see them with some LiDAR and some ground penetrating radar. And I talked to a guy named Tom, and he's got connections with the local natives and stuff. And he laid out a pretty good theory to me, and it makes sense. He thinks that egg was originally a turtle,
Oh.
and that snake is eating a turtle, and the legs came out next to the mouth, coming back, and then another set going forward, and that triangular little mound at the front was the head. And the turtle was Turtle Island. And it's a allegory of the passing of a new age, like it was the kind of like the young Adrias event maybe. But you have
Yep.
the serpent god of the lower world of South America, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, coming up and devouring Turtle Island, which was North America.
Interesting. Yeah, there are examples of turtle effigy mounds as well. So there was some sort of turtle references going on with these mounds. I've never heard that. I've never heard that theory. That's interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't
I
either till they told me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's such a mysterious place, and yeah, may have been destroyed in the past there, but seemingly in large part it's been kept intact, which is good to see that, because I think this is one question I put a pen into my mind earlier there when we're talking about, you mentioned procession of the equinoxes. I've always wondered how that goes down, right? First of all, who's there to track this whole procession, right? Is somebody keeping a record of this somewhere? Maybe, I don't know. But nonetheless, like, how do you think the astronomy that was relevant at this time, when they built the mound 2,500, 3,000 years ago, why do you think that still lines up today?
Which it does, but it's off a few degrees. So they theorize
Gotcha.
that's why it's not perfectly lined up. And some believe that this was constructed when Draco, which is a serpent, was the northern star. But I was going to show you some goodies, because as we were talking, I kind of forgot. This may or may not be a piece of the standing stone that was at the head of Serpent Mound that was pushed off the cliff.
That was nice.
May or may not be.
Well, that's the other thing, because it's built on. You mentioned cliff. It's built on the ridge line from a asteroid that allegedly hit there 60, I don't know, 25 million years ago, I think, or something like that. I don't know who's tracking that though. Who's keeping count?
Right. Which Tom, that guy I spoke spoke with, he's like a geologist, and one of the things he does is gives tours of this crater, and he's dug up fossils and trilobites and things like that. And so he's
Sure.
helped, some of these people do some of the dating and stuff of that. And one of the interviews I done with him, he was talking about even some of the, like the supernatural occurrences and stuff that happened there, and he thinks it all has to do with this crater. And he said, whoever built, this effigy mound, he said, I believe it's like they felt. He said, I think they felt the energy or how special this place was because of this impact crater. But I was going to show you guys some other stuff that I'd found or got while I was there. Like one thing, like we was talking about supernatural stuff. Right here, it says Serpent Mound Soybean Formation. This was first discovered in August the 24th, 2003. It was 271 feet from the top of a large ring to the bottom of the small ringed circle, all oriented east to west. The diameter of the eye in the Verkisca piscis was 74 feet. And this was an aerial photograph in 2003 by Jeff Wilson and Roger Sugden. So that guy I talked about that I'd interviewed, Jeff Wilson, he's the one that got this. And this was, stone's throw away from Serpent Mound in 2003. So you got all kinds of crazy phenomenon going on around this site. And here is all the different astronomical alignments in that turtle that I talked about.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, they got the turtle on there too. Nice.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize, because it's not talked about, but when they first dug in that large mound at Serpent Mound, here's what they found. This guy was 7 feet at the knees. When they found him, he was cut off at the knees, and his hands were cut off also. Why was that? Did he have 6 fingers and 6 toes? Maybe.
He was a thief.
That wasn't the only giant, I believe, that was found there, because they have, when you pull into the parking lot there, in the corner of it, near the building, there's 2 Adena mounds that sit there. They excavated one of those mounds years ago, and I believe they had a 7'2" and a 7.5 footer in there. I believe there's 2 giants in there.
Yeah. And that one of those was at that parking lot mound, but he was 7 foot at the knees.
That is the parking lot mound.
The lower half of his legs.
What do you think that is? Probably
okay. Yeah. We're talking the same giant then. Okay, because if you go in the building there and start asking questions about that, they're gonna be like, we don't know anything about that.
Yep.
That's fucking tall.
Are you familiar with the Adena Highway? It was it was a highway that ran from Serpent Mound to Delaware, the Newark Earthworks, just east of Columbus. And it was I think 85 miles maybe, but it had a pathway with mounds on both sides. I think it was 8 foot or 9 foot. Picture those kind of long barrow mounds on both sides for 85 miles, 8 or 9 foot high.
Wow. Nah, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, and it led to the Newark Earthworks. Are you familiar with those? Those are very interesting.
Yeah, I spoke with Fritz, and he just discovered this past year at Newark how they got that opening, that doorway to that hinge there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what is it, on May 1st on Beltane. That hinge lines up perfectly with the sunrise of Beltane. And that's the holy day for the worship of Baal of the Canaanites.
Mm-hmm.
And so Fritz, he theorizes that these were the Nephilim giants from the Bible, because it says that when the Egyptians, or actually when the Jews left Egypt and went into the Holy Land to conquer the Holy Land, all of the tribes that were listed were Nephilim giant tribes. That's why they were devout to destruction. It said, kill every man, woman, and child, because they were Nephilim giant clans. And the ones that heard about the conquest, the Phoenicians, they were known to be great sailors. He said that he theorizes that they got on boats and fled to the New World. And he said the water levels were higher back then, that they probably went in to, around Boston or somewhere around there and went straight into like the Great Lakes area. He said that's where you see all these copper mines with all the missing copper. And he said, and that copper there, he said, is traceable. He said it's like 98.5% pure. It's the purest copper in the world. He said, and it's the only copper that tests that high. He said, so they're testing copper in Europe, South America, Asia, all over the world. That's testing, at 98.5% pure. That's showing them that it come from these Michigan copper mines. And with all the lack of the copper that's missing. And they have found depictions of Phoenician ships and petroglyphs there in Michigan. So they're saying that they're theorizing that these Phoenicians were going over, mining all this copper, distributing it throughout the world and going back and forth. So they already knew the route, they knew the land. So during this conquest of Canaan, they come to the New World and settled, and then they went out from there. And that's why you find all of these mounds and earthworks and stuff in the Ohio River Valley, because they just went down from there. And that's why you see all this stuff. And even in New Hampshire, that America's Stonehenge, they found this big old stone slab with paleo Phoenician script on it, and they didn't know what it was, so they called Harvard, and Barry Fell from Harvard went up there and translated it. And sure enough, I mean, it was like Paleo Phoenician script, and it said, basically it said, to Baal of the Canaanites, we the Phoenicians dedicate, this site. And then, like I said, then you have Newark, where the hinge opening lines perfectly up with May 1st, Beltane. You have all these signs pointing to the Nephilim giants from the land of Canaan who worship Baal were the ones that come to the New World and done all this stuff, man. It's pretty fascinating.
Are you sure you're not Mormon? Because you were talking about multiple gods earlier and all these Canaanite mound stuff now. You sound like a Mormon talking about these topics.
No, not Mormon.
These are some of the ideas of Mormonism, what you're hitting on right there.
No, I don't believe in soul babies and having my own planet and all that.
You want your own planet?
No. No, that's number one lie of Satan in the garden. You shall be as gods.
It's interesting you were pointing out, some of this evidence of the ancient history of America. And Barry Fell's written a number of books on that, and he's definitely deciphered some, like you said, some texts and stuff like that, Ogham and whatnot as well, some ancient Celtic stuff. But I don't know that he's ever really tried to touch this stuff. I've never seen anything, that he did on some of the mound tablets, right? So this is a tablet from an Adena mound that was 30-foot banger there on 5th and Mound Street, downtown Cincinnati. 9th and Mound Street. They don't come up with, a lot of times you go to a city, especially throughout the Midwest, anything in the New World of America. So the Ohios and Kentuckys, Tennessees, and so on and so forth, westbound. A lot of the stuff where you're going to find mound locations are named after George Washington, Marquis de Lafayette, Thomas Jefferson, and a number of these other characters who were involved in the secret society that started America because they love mounds, the Society of Cincinnati, which was their town there in Cincinnati. So I think this town actually had a lot of mounds that were important, and that was one of the things they were concerned about settling there. And one of the very occult purposes for settling there. George Washington had surveyed a lot of these mounds, even in the Cincinnati area, as early as, wasn't Cincinnati then, but as early as, he's 16 years old. So I think a lot of this stuff is very important, but there's not been a lot of attention given, in my opinion, to deciphering a lot of this stuff. I've only seen one or two solid attempts, but it seems like we were pointing out before with the disc from what was it, the rattlesnake disc?
Yeah.
It's a star map, so this seems to be a star map, but it also seems to be a language, right? But it's treated as art today.
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, just at a glance, I'm not an expert, but to me, it's kind of got like a South America, like, Aztec kind of flavor to it. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it does have some of those curves and similarities in the aesthetic, I think. So, according to my best assessment of this here tablet, not art, but it's there's a fellow by the name of Noah Sage. I'm not sure if this is a blog that he still runs, but I'll look for it while I'm rambling. The ancient Hittites. Apparently, this is ancient Hittite, which is kind of the modern day area of Turkey and Syria,
Mm-hmm.
dating back, I think, to 500 BC, maybe. You familiar with the Hittites?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the Hittites. That was a Nephilim giant clan in the Bible. And that's
Right.
one of the ones I talk about in my book, the Epic of Esau. Esau marries into the Hittites and the
So,
Horites.
Hittites. We didn't plan this, by the way. That's hilarious. That's nice.
Yeah.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, so that's supposedly ancient Hittite. This guy runs a blog here. His name's I don't. This blog is old. I've never spoken to the guy, but he does a good job at trying to decipher all these tablets that are found mainly through the Ohio region with those old Adena mounds. So, kind of you've been to Serpent Mound. Have you been to Chillicothe?
I'm wanting to go to a bunch more this summer. The only ones that because I honestly, I started getting into reading about them last year before last, and last year I went and visited my first ones. I went to Ohio and I went to uh, the Enon Mound. I went to Miamisburg
That's a good one.
and Serpent Mound.
Okay.
That's the three that I've been to so far. So this summer and spring, I'm really going to hit the road hard and see some.
Nice. So right down the road from Serpent Mound is Chillicothe. If you were to look at the Adena mounds, what we know about them as far as where they were, and because not many of them are left, compared to how many there used to be, right? It's, not even we have a small percentage. I'm just going to say small, an infantile percentage of less than 1% that still remain. So, if you put a bullseye on like Chillicothe, that would, like, if you looked at like a target, Chillicothe would be like the bullseye, right? And then it spreads out from there. But the largest epicenter of Adena mounds are in and around Chillicothe. There's still a number of sites there.
Yeah, I want to get to because where I'm at, closer toward Nashville, there's a really big mound complex out that way that I want to go check out. The name's slipping my mind right now, but it's a big one.
Penson,
Yes.
that's a very interesting site. I've been there as well. In
We
fact,
should hook up, guys,
Nick was just
this
talking about
summer and
that.
go see some sights and do
I
some
would,
filming and
definitely.
stuff.
Definitely.
Let's go on an adventure.
Yeah, well, if you're in Ohio, definitely let me know if you're coming to do some mountain searching in Ohio. I'm always looking for some mountain time. I'm
Last
up by
weekend in
Springfield.
July, I'll be up there for a conference. I'll be there.
Mountain conference.
It's just a conference that I go to every year. It's, trying to think of the town, Brooksville,
Oh,
Ohio.
must be north of here.
It's like
huh?
30 It's 30 minutes from Enon Mound and 30 minutes from Miamisburg. Because last year when I went to the conference, I found out how close those mounds were, and I was like, "Yeah, I have to go." So,
That's about. I'm about an hour from that area. That's earlier by Dayton, but yeah, the Miamisburg Mound's super interesting.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool to get some drone footage of those mounds.
What's that?
That'd be cool to get some drone footage of the mounds.
Oh man, Justin, you must have some good stuff from the Serpent Mound, because you made a good point. You really have to see it from above to really take in the whole situation there. And that tower's been closed for a number of years.
yeah, I got kicked out. They got signs everywhere saying no drones, no drones, no drones. So I recorded all the stuff that I needed, and I was like, I'm just gonna fly it any damn way. I went on a Sunday, and there wasn't a whole lot of people there, so I recorded everything that I wanted to record, and then I went to the head of the serpent and kind of just waited for, you know, everybody to disperse because there wasn't that many people there. And I launched it from the head and took off, and I made it like halfway down to where it starts to curve. And of course, I'm looking at my, you know, camera on my controller, and all of a sudden I just hear, "Sir, sir, sir," and I'm like, "Shit!" And I look over, and it's a worker, and he's like, "Sir, I don't know if you've not seen the signs." And I mean, you couldn't miss them. I mean, hell, it was like every 5 foot
Right.
on the walkway. No drone, no drone, no drone. I was like, "No, what sign?"
From the parking lot or like down the block.
Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't allow drones here." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know, man. My bad." And so I went to
I'm
land
new.
it, you know. And after I landed it, you know, he was like, "Well, rules are rules, so I don't have to ask you to leave, sir." And I was like, "All right," you know. And I was like, "Well, how's everybody got all this drone footage I see on TV?" You know, he's like, "Oh, they file and ask for paperwork and all this stuff." And I was like,
Pay
"Well, how
some
come you
money.
don't allow people to fly?" And he was like, "Because this site's sacred. You know, people do rituals here, and people are buried here." And I was like,
They do.
"So a
They
piece
do
of
rituals there.
people? Oh yeah." But I was like, "So a piece of paperwork makes it unsacred for a little while?"
To a bureaucrat.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I found out through Jeff though, because next year I'll get some real good footage because Jeff owns property. That guy I've been talking about, I've made friends with him. He owns the property that's tied adjacent to Serpent Mound, and he said they can't do nothing. You know, they don't own the airspace. He said, but you can't launch
Right.
and land there. He said, just next time you're up, come to my house. He
I
said,
do
you
that.
can launch from my land and fly over.
Yo, any place that ever had a sign with the no drones, I literally just left the property and sent it up from my car, like out in the street on the
Yeah.
fucking.
There you go.
Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You don't
Ain't
know
gonna
the
say
sky.
anything.
You don't know the sky, bitches.
You know what's crazy is that, I mean, you probably realize you can send that shit up 80 feet and you don't even see it anymore. You actually don't have to go that high for people not to even see the fucking
Yeah.
thing.
They just hear it. They,
Yeah, if that. Well, they might hear yours, yeah, because you got a little bit more of a diesel one than mine. But yeah,
Justin, when you
throw
get back
mine
to
up,
Serpent Mound.
nobody knows it's
No, go ahead, Nick.
No, I'm just saying. I know I've put mine up. I know for a fact I've noticed at least at 80 feet, you'll not see it or hear it. And it's like, oh, it's pretty crazy. It's really not that high, if you think about it. In my opinion.
The next time you go to Serpent Mound there, Justin, don't take a right out of there and drive 3 miles down the road to Belfast, Ohio. And definitely don't take a picture in front of this Knights of Pythias hall. It's a, secret society, the Knights of Pythias. They don't like that there. They'll send the Belfast welcoming crew to come greet you.
Yo, do they have one of those
nice.
over at Yale? Knights of Pythias?
The Knights of Pythias, they're an interesting bunch. I hadn't really heard of them until I stumbled across this location, decided to take a photograph in front of the place, and it got weird. We'd also just eaten a bunch of shrooms. I was with Recluse. It was me, Recluse, host of Steven Snyder, the host of the Farm podcast. Me, him, and a couple of fellas were doing a Serpent Mound mushroom adventure, and decided to go. Went this way. I think taking a wrong turn, maybe perhaps on the way out of there. Not the sober driver was. He wasn't from around the area. I was the one who drove us there. Then ate a bunch of mushrooms like a jackass and couldn't drive us out. It was part of the plan, but the plan was also not to get lost. But we get lost, right? Because I didn't give the guy directions. And we end up at this place. So we get out of the car, we're taking pictures, and yeah, they don't like that. They don't like that. It's an odd experience.
And what is it exactly?
It's a very old ass, very rural Knights of Pythias lodge. So they're a secret society. I don't know. I don't want to call them even relative to the Freemasons. They kind of have this independent, where I call the International Order of Oddfellows, kind of like diet Freemasonry, because it's like the craftsmen. Like these people, they seem to have like a different trajectory in life as far as their secret society stuff goes. Don't quote me on that because I don't know enough about them. I just don't go take a picture of the old lodge in front of Belfast. Apparently, it's an active lodge. It looked like it was a rundown shack.
Yeah, it looks like an old abandoned like grocery store or something back
That's
in the
what
day.
we thought. That's what we thought.
It's like, hey man,
Oh,
I just
shit.
wanted some milk and bread, dude.
Right? I didn't want any beef. I didn't hear beef.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, my shrooms are wearing off. I wanted some
Yeah,
OJ, bro.
right. This trip's no longer fun, man. This trip's no longer fun.
You're killing my bros, man.
So you were mentioning the OG kind of comet portal situation before, right?
Yeah,
And one of the things I thought of when you're describing that is, I was wondering if they're wearing the black robes and the Nikes when they're doing that, because it sounds very Heaven's Gate like, with that kind of theology or philosophy of this ritual to go jump, send your spirit onto a some sort of celestial being, right? And
yeah,
this tablet, the Cincinnati tablets, even tracking Halley's Comet. That's what the Heaven's Gate folks were after, right? They were trying to jump Halley's Comet. So I wonder if folks back in the Dina Mound folks, where they were rocking some robes and Nikes, doing some of the Halley's Comet stuff, Heaven's Gate style too. Because what I mean is these ideas, I wonder, they seem like they never go away, right? Like I think a lot of folks, especially in the late '90s, you seem like you're of the same age as Nick and myself, and Heaven's Gate was kind of the onset of the interwebs, right? It was they were kind of known as the internet cult.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like Solomon said, nothing new is under the sun.
Right.
They will find this new thing and marvel and say, oh, they found this new thing. No, it's an old thing that's been lost and forgotten, now just being rediscovered.
Yeah, but with these concepts, do they get rediscovered? Or they just get passed down.
Well, I mean, if they're fortunate enough not to be lost, yeah, they get passed down. But if they end up getting lost or forgotten for a while, someone finds a tablet or an old writing or text, and it gets
Or a magical
revived.
salamander tells them how to do it, Joseph Smith style, or
Yeah,
an
man.
angel, whatever you want to.
Or a magic
you
stone
call
in a hat, and they
Magic
get
stone in a
scry.
That's what I'm saying. So
Scry
like,
reveals all.
if humanity forgets these ideas of shipping their souls to comets through these portals, does some being come tell them that through a magic stone in a hat or a magical salamander, or what did Crowley do? He was doing stuff in ancient Egypt, right? He was doing stuff in the Great Pyramid, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I think with the biblical viewpoint. It's the demons, the fallen angels, these B'nai Ha Elohim that I talked about with Deuteronomy and the Tower of Babel. It's you're pulling out that esoteric phone, ET phoning home, but you don't know who's
Right.
going to answer the other side.
Right.
They'll
That's a good
tell
way
you
to
what
put
you
it.
want to hear. But it's like even the Muses. I've talked about that. I've been doing some research on that, wanting to do a show on those guys. The ancient Greeks, they talked about the 9 Muses. So whether it was music or theater, songwriting, storytelling, any time that they got an inspiration for something, they attribute it to the Muses. And they said the muse came to them and gave them this thing, and then they have, in modern time, talks about, automatic writing. Who was it? Led Zeppelin talked about a night of partying, that they woke up and boom, there was Stairway to Heaven and some of those hit songs in the lead singer's handwriting. He didn't even remember writing it.
Yeah, I think
Jimmy Page,
supposedly
yeah.
Jimmy Page was living in Alistair Crowley's old house when that happened.
Right.
Yeah, so the ancient Greeks called that the muse, and when you go into like Homer and Hesiod, in the original languages, in like the opening of the Iliad, Homer's talking about I summon the 9 muses. I'm their vessel, and then all of a sudden it's like one of the muses takes him over. And it says, yes, I'm the muse, and we give the histories and the stories and the songs. And it basically says that it's up to us whether we tell you the truth or a lie. So, I mean, even at the beginning of the Iliad, the muse that takes over the pen tells you up front, we're the ones that give the stories. We're the one that gives the songs. And it's up to us whether we tell you the truth or tell you a pretty lie.
Now, are their muses the same as demons? Because their demons are not our demons. Their demons are different demons. Their demons are daemons, right?
Well, I mean, tomato, tomato. I mean, but the thing is they demons, to the Greeks, they're benevolent, but to the Jewish people and stuff, that's the same thing. It's just from their viewpoint is that they are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, but the Greeks see them as the good guys. It's the same thing. It's like a finger puppet. You got a hand and got a puppet on each finger with a different name, but hell, it's coming from the same hand.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I had a different concept of what the Greeks' view of the daemon was. I thought it was like the unconscious mind or subconscious mind.
Well, some like Plato and some of these guys, everybody had like their own flavor or viewpoint.
That was
like
Plato. Well, that was Plato's definition, right?
Yeah, Plato talked about how the gods weren't real. The gods were basically personality or emotions. So like when you got angry, that was Ares whispering in your ear, or when you had a lustful thought or something like that, that was Aphrodite. So kind of like, his thought was the gods were the emotions and thoughts of the mind.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly created a lot of the thoughts and that were later developed new thoughts, right? I mean, he's everything, everything Plato did and said apparently seems to have formed Western thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carl Jung and a lot of the
right,
the thinkers of the New World.
For sure.
Oh.
So what's the relationship with the Hittites and your Esau storyline there with the So the epic of Esau is is, if I'm understanding correctly, is the essentially the birth of the Nephilim that have created these giants that we later find in these mounds, right? Is that kind of the long and the short of
it? He's not, but he marries into them. For those that's not familiar with Esau, he's honestly like one of the most enigmatic characters of the Bible. You just get little blurbs about him, and it's because the Bible was 66 separate scrolls that were put together and made into this book, but there was all kinds of other scrolls and stories around during this time that just didn't make the quote unquote cut for the Bible. And so when the writers were writing these books, they didn't go into great detail about this guy because there were so many other books that did go into great detail. So it's like they thought, what's the point in beating a dead horse? Theoretically, everybody knows about this. I don't need to cover this. So you had the book of Jasher and the legends of the Jews and all these other things. So like as the past 2 years, when I deep dived and found this stuff, I found all these other little missing pieces and put them together to form this complete story of this guy. But the book of Genesis just starts off and tells you about Esau. It says that his birth, strange to say the least. It says that he comes out red, covered in hair from head to toe, like a hairy cloak. So with our modern vernacular and viewpoint, it's like if you've seen this guy that's described in the Bible out in the woods or out on the street, I mean, without hesitation, I mean, you would say, I mean, I seen Bigfoot, I seen a Sasquatch.
Right.
I mean, it said he was covered in hair from head to toe like a cloak. And it skips on down. You get his genealogies, and he was the eldest son who traded his birthright. But some of these extra biblical books say that he bumps into King Nimrod, and their claims to fame is that they were the mighty hunters. And so it's kind of like the Highlander. There can only be one baby. So these two mighty hunters clash. And it says that Esau kills Nimrod, cuts off his head, and steals his garments. And it says these were the garments to which he was able to rule over all the nations. So and immediately I was like, well, what's up with these garments? What's so special about these garments? And so as I got to digging, it turns out that these are the supernatural garments from the Garden of God that was given to Adam and Eve. And so I just started finding all these cool things about this guy. But to answer your question, he takes 3 wives in his adult age, and 2 of them are Canaanites, who they were commanded not to marry into. They were supposed to be a cursed lineage. And when you follow the genealogies, these were known Nephilim giant clans. So if you take this Sasquatch guy and marry him into Nephilim giant clans and interbreed with them, I mean, you have a really high likelihood of throwing some really strange pups, to say the least. And I think that's why you have so many stories throughout the world and cultures of the Yeti. In China, they call it the Urine. In Europe, they call it the Wild Man. In Sardinia, you have these festivals where the people cover themselves in black goat's fur and dance during the summer or the winter solstice. You have the histories and stories of Krampus. In North America, you have the Sitika, the red-haired giants. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. It's a common theme and story, because I think it stems from this event. And when he intermarries with these people, it says that his from this union, his grandson is this guy in the Bible called Amalek. And Amalek was kind of like Nimrod. He was this famous warrior giant. And he birthed this clan called the Amalekites. And they were kind of like the Viking berserkers. They were known for their ruthlessness. And they dominated the battlefield. And they hailed from the land of Mount Seir. And when you break down that word in Hebrew, that means hairy. So it's already describing these hairy giants, okay?
Hairy mountain.
And yeah, and so when you get to the etymology of the Amalekites' name also, that means blood lickers. So it's these hairy, giant, vampiristic style people. And I think it's telling because in the Israelites' wilderness wanderings in the Bible, it says that the first people they encounter are these Amalekites, and that they attack them. And here's where you get all the rules from God. And I say it in the book, you don't get rules, laws, and regulations if somebody's not breaking these rules, laws, or regulations. You know, there's a reason why you get them. And I think if you look at those, I think it's telling to the people that they were having contact with. Because it says, number 1, do not drink the blood. The life force is in the blood. It says, do not seek necromancers and sorcerers. Do not pass your children through the fire. And it says, no longer will you sacrifice to hairy goat demons. And, you know, the book of Isaiah talks about wild
What was
men.
that from?
This is all like in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. This is all like during the Jews' wilderness wanderings time. And it says in Isaiah that the wild men, the satyrs, will dance in the wilderness in the desolate cities. I think it's talking about these people from the union of Esau, this hairy Sasquatch man, breeding with these Nephilim giant clans. And I think that's why you see remnants of all these, you know, Urine, Sasquatch, Krampus, the people of Sardinia, just throughout the world. And that's why God was telling people, don't do this, because God's people were seeing these Amalekites, these blood lickers, doing these practices, and God's people were starting to imitate them. So God's like, no, you can't be doing this.
That's interesting. So the Hittites fall into this bloodline as a result of. What was that again? Can you refresh me on the Hittite portion of that? I appreciate that explanation. You got me going on so many different wheels turning my head there. I've now forgot where we started with the Hittites, though, connection to that.
Well, like when you go through the genealogies in Genesis, and thanks to people like Gary Wayne in his book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, I mean, he did like a really, good, thorough job of going through those genealogies because, I mean, they're boring. A lot of people just read through those because it's, this one begot that, this one begot that, begot, and it's kind of boring and we skip over it. But he went through it with a fine-tooth comb and traced them, and he found out, that these were known Nephilim giant clans. And so through him going through and tracing all that, we know that they were, Nephilim. They were giants. And where Esau marries into this line, you have this hybridization of mixing of giants with this Sasquatchy sounding guy. But he even takes a third wife. His third wife, he marries into Ishmael's clan. And what's crazy about that is Ishmael is his father's eldest brother. And him, Esau, and Ishmael have something in common. They are both the eldest brother that was screwed out of their birthright by their younger brother. So you can kind of imagine the family feud, like hatred that was sown between these people and
Sure.
Between this union. And you see it playing out today even when you turn on your news. Because when you go through the genealogies, all of your Muslim nations, all of your Palestinian and people groups and religious groups that are constantly at enmity and at war with God's people, the Jews, it all stems from this seed war. It's an ancient thing because
I think it is a very ancient family feud. That's how I look at a lot of things. You're making a lot of sense to me there, Justin. I like what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's two brothers, two family sets. Both of them think that they were screwed out of their inheritance and their birthright in this land, and they're fighting to the death over it.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's why I named the book, the Epic of Esau, and the subtitle is the birthright and the seed war.
Nice. Yeah. So it would be fascinating then that there's these giants, at the base of these oldest mounds here in America, and there's also tablets that connect to seemingly the same civilization of folks, right?
Yeah. I think so, anyway.
Yeah, the ancient and that area of Turkey and Syria was very important to the Crusades. If you're familiar with the First Crusade, they set up shop there for about 25 years. So the Knights Templar, that is, at least. I'm not sure about. I don't really pay much attention to those other Knights orders. But I can give you some Templar history, and they set up shop there for about 25 years during the First Crusade. That was their headquarters in this in the immediate area of that this kind of giants and ancient Hittite folks come from.
Yeah, and it was important in two facets, because number one, it had biblical importance because this was the cradle of civilization. This is where they believed the Garden of Eden to be. This is where this is close to Mount Ararat, where in their belief system,
not far from that, right?
The boat landed that restarted all civilization. And then at the same time, this was the center of a lot of trade routes, and this was the place that connected Europe to the Middle East and also Asia. So this was
right,
a super highway. So you had the silk and the spices coming from Asia. You had the silver and the tin and stuff coming from Europe. I mean, this was
all coming.
This was
all crossing through.
Yes. So this is a very economic, trade important place,
Big
and
time.
it's also a religious, historical important place.
It's
Did we
almost like it's the
lose?
Holy Land, right?
Oh, yeah.
I often wonder when I'm looking at the Templar stuff, what were they more interested in? Stuff down in Jerusalem or stuff over there in this old ancient Hittite region? Because again, that seemed to be their primary concern. It wasn't like they had to pass through that area and couldn't go further south. They seemed to want to do a lot of activity there and set up shop there before they went anywhere else. Because again, 20, 25 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And another thing too, they needed the money. They were trying to gather all their funds to fund all their explorations, and also this was a place where they thought, possibility of the Garden of Eden. This was a place that was possible for the Noah's Ark. So they were looking for these artifacts, and they were
Sure.
Scavenging up money from all the trades and protecting merchants and doing mercenary type work and protecting trade routes so they could fund explorations down into the Holy Land. And at the same time, the Templars were going down into Ethiopia and looking for the Ark of the Covenant.
Sure. No, they were very interested in all that business for sure. I also think they found troves of libraries over there in the Eastern Roman Empire that they didn't previously have access to.
Yep.
So not necessarily monetary or gold treasures or religious treasures, but treasures nonetheless.
Oh yeah. Yep.
What are your thoughts on this mound? Let's play a game called "What are your thoughts on this mound?"
I am not familiar with it.
Oh, this is a fun one.
How you pronounce that?
Well, I don't,
Hanukkah?
I don't know what they've done
the
here.
Hanukkah mound?
Yeah, well, I think it's commonly referred to as the Hanukkah mound. I'm not sure what this Wikipedia page, the source of all information on the interwebs. Someone seems to have edited some silliness in there, perhaps. Most folks claim this mound didn't exist. That's the overwhelming narrative.
So they've not found it?
Well, I found it. Oop. I found it by following this map. I got into a dispute with for some reason there was these retired NSA guys also trying to find this mound, and they published an article in the local newspaper there in Claremont County, Ohio, the location of this mound. And then so I wrote them an email. So this is all very mysterious to me. This was going on. They didn't say they were former NSA guys until I contacted. I saw the article, reached out to these fellows. They were using LiDAR to search for this mound in an area not where this mound was located. So I wrote them an email. I was like, "Yo, fellas, any luck finding the mound?" And they're like, "Oh, no." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what are y'all doing? What are y'all working with there?" And they're like, "Oh, we're a couple retired NSA guys looking for this mound. We're using LiDAR." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Did you read the map?" And I asked him, "Did you read the map?" He goes, No. We got LiDAR. We got all this other stuff." I'm like, "No. Did you look at the map and did you read the map?" The bottom of this map, it gives clear instructions from the beginning point of the fork of the Little Miami River to the eastern fork of the Little Miami River, in the precise distance in which you'll find right to the top of this. They call it an oil lamp, or and menorah, or the Hanukkah mound. It's been referred to in various forms and fashions because there was, I think, nine fellas who over about a 12-year span, they were a member of that secret society that I was talking about that started America, George Washington Society of Cincinnati. They were all military officers and surveyors, guys that were advanced in mathematics at a time where, even in this country, folks were allegedly not supposed to be that advanced in mathematics outside of these elite colleges and whatnot to teach it. But anyhow, these folks over about a 12-year time span took numerous trips here. Not an easy venture, to get to this location necessarily. There's no highways or roads; it's all rivers and stuff. And they drew this map, various surveys, and today it sits at the bottom of a lake.
Oh, figures.
In 1967, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers wanted to build one of their dam projects there and fill in this town of Bantam, Ohio. And and they lost the court case, and they did it anyway. So, and then they got sued. So, as a result of violating the court order of not to do it. So, for whatever reason, it seemed like someone had a very, there was a clear intent, in my opinion, to bury this mound at the bottom of about 150 feet of very dirty. I wouldn't go in there. Definitely don't touch that water, lake water.
They done something similar in East Tennessee, and you can actually look it up. It's, you know, accessible news. They even made a museum, but the name is slipping me. But they built a dam and flooded this town, and but they had found pyramids, and they thought it was like remnants of Egyptian stuff. And even the Smithsonian was involved. And but they told them, even after they found everything, no, we're still building the dam, we're still flooding this part of the valley. So mad dash, you got like 2 weeks to dig and find what you can. And everybody went in and dug and found everything they could, and then they flooded it, and they built like a little museum and put the artifacts and stuff that they found in there. But you know, a lot of conspiracy theorists say that it was an Egyptian pyramid complex that they found in East Tennessee.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Are you familiar with the Bat Creek Stone?
Mm-mm.
No,
It's
I'm not.
from East Tennessee.
You said it was the Bad Creek?
B-A-T, Bat Creek.
Oh.
So
Is that
from
it over there
Cherokee
on the
Country there
right?
in East Tennessee.
That looks like that Phoenician script, that paleo stuff that Barry Fell found at America's Stonehenge.
That's exactly what it is. It's supposedly Paleo Hebrew, 1st century Paleo Hebrew.
Yep.
Smithsonian dug it up in the 60s, claimed it was Cherokee, ancient Cherokee writing, and the Cherokee's like, we didn't invent writing till like 1705, buddy. What the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. I think the Cherokee is one of the lost tribes.
well, there you go. This is some of the evidence maybe supporting that, right? Maybe they built the Hanukkah mound, right?
Possibility. I spoke with, now he's actually a friend of mine. He's a local guy. He lives 15 minutes from me. I just found this out this year. But Chief Joseph Riverwind, he's been on a lot of documentaries of L.A. Marzullis. And actually met him in person and filmed some stuff with him. But he actually found a like a 4 to 5 foot bronze Nephilim lance. I mean, this is just the blade of it. It's like 4 or 5 foot long. It weighs like 20 something pounds, and it was on the end of like a huge javelin. When you hear that story of the giant of Kandahar, how he had this huge spear and impaled 2 or 3 men on this one spear, it was the same kind of weapon, but they found it up in Michigan. But I got pictures. I got to hold this freaking thing. It was awesome. But he was talking about how his wife is Cherokee, and that they believe that they were one of the lost tribes of Israel. And during all this diaspora and stuff that they come over here, because he said they went to Israel as First Nation representatives, and that they were singing songs at the wall in their Cherokee language, and that there was a Jewish man there, and after they got done singing, it was like, oh, that was so beautiful, you singing about this, this, and this, and told them about several things that they were singing about, and he was like, some of it I couldn't understand, but yeah, but you said this, this, and this, and he said he pretty much told them what they were singing about, that he knew the majority of it, and they was like, oh, you know Cherokee language, you know, and he was like, no, you were singing old ancient Jewish or Hebrew, and they were like, no, that was Cherokee. And then they got to talking. It was like the languages were so similar, and like the name of Yahweh was almost identical.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was so similar. I've heard the tales of the Cherokee. I have a lot of Cherokee in my family tree, so I have heard the tales of being the lost tribes. You know, I'm familiar with the Back Creek Stone and other such evidence. I'm certainly not ruling it out. You know what I mean? It seems very plausible to me.
I had to adjust that. I was all blurry, bro. I was like, what the hell's going on with my camera?
Well, gents, I appreciate both your time this evening for the Fridays. Nick, as always, is joining as co-host here, and Justin's been great to meet you. Turn the table both over to you, gents, for some closing statements to round out tonight's conversation. But I just wanted to say I appreciate both your all's time.
I'll go first, and we'll let the
combo.
guests go last. Thanks for coming on, man. That was some really good stuff. It was a really good talk. I like the Mounds. I even like the stuff we were talking about at the beginning. Really, final thoughts. Really ain't got much to say, really. Check out the Occult Rejects. It's on all major podcast hosts and BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube. And check out our website, occultresearchinstitute.org. Has a bunch of the Occult Rejects on there and affiliates of the Rejects that have tons and tons of different types of work on different types of subjects. So, thank you very much, sir.
And just interject there, Justin, before I turn the table over to you there, sir. Just wanted to point out, Nick, we just did some excellent Mormon conversations with
that's true,
with Heidi there as a guest on the Occult Rejects. So I want to be somewhat biased. I'm a participant in such conversations, but I really enjoyed them. And I think they're some excellent conversations that folks are going to enjoy.
Yeah, check that out. It drops tomorrow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Justin, sir, appreciate your time, and you got my wheels turning on a lot of subjects tonight. I definitely enjoyed the conversation.
On so many different things.
Yeah, man. I thank you guys for having me, man. I had a really good time. Hopefully, this is the first of many. But that's why I love podcasting, man. You get to just sit down and exchange puzzle pieces. That's one thing I always say that this is we all have pieces to the puzzle. Nobody has it all figured out. And if you sit down with somebody and they say they got it all figured out, you better run, because that person don't have a damn clue. And
might be the dumbest person around you.
Yeah. And if you we're not all going to agree on everything. So if you get a group of people that say they agree on everything, you better run from that too, because that's an occult.
For sure.
Yeah, but thank you guys for having me, and I appreciate it. The podcast is Prometheus Lens Podcast. You can find me anywhere you can consume content. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, any of those fine places. You can just search up Prometheus Lens Podcast and find me there. And my newest released book, The Epic of Esau, The Birthright and Seed War, you can find it on Amazon. It's on ebook for $10 or paperback for $20. Check that out if you enjoyed any of the conversation that we talked about today. It's 15 chapters. We barely scratched the surface. It was a 2-year deep dive.
Nice. No, it's awesome. I got your links in the I know, I like the friends jokes.
Richie McCrone, this is JJ.
Yeah. Is that Mr. or Mr. McCrone? Which one?
I'm talking about the father /
That's what I'm saying. They're both Misters, right?
Yeah.
Shim misses you.
No, I got your links in the notes here too, Justin. So folks want to check that out. The links there already. Now, great conversation, Nick. Justin, I definitely appreciate all the new stuff you got popping off my brain hole here, but definitely, link up on the Mounds again in the future for sure. I like to, anytime, like I said, you're up in Ohio doing some mound visits. Let me know. Happy to give you a tour some of the other sites around the area that maybe you don't are off the beaten path, so to speak. Because this is mound country, but they're not all they're not all state parks. They're not all national parks. Some of them don't have signs. I stumbled across a few in North Carolina at a dog park when I was passing through there a few weeks ago. I sent Nick a picture of those from the dog park. I said, sometimes I find the mounds and sometimes the mounds find me. So Definitely lots of mounds
Yeah,
out
we
there
got
that
to
are not
coordinate
really,
a field
registered.
trip.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely down with that, man, for sure. I'm dying to use my equipment whenever I can. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate folks at the interwebs chat. Chaz always cracking me up here. We were having a good time there for sure. Looks like everyone has having a good time. A lot of folks enjoying a lot of the stuff. A lot of new information from the chat. Looks like a lot of folks were saying there too, Justin. So good, for sure. Awesome stuff. But yeah, Operation GCD live Wednesdays 7 p.m. and of course Fridays. Back here next Friday. But did a comparison of OJ. The OJ Simpson did not do it. An Idaho 4 case comparison this past Wednesday night, which I again biased because it's my show, but I highly recommend it. Folks want to understand that OJ didn't do it, and the same playbook's almost being rolled out here to frame Kohberger. Strangely enough, involving some of the same characters and nefarious activities surrounding the cases. It's an odd environment. It's an odd environment indeed, and of course Scientology is involved. Not in the Idaho 4 case necessarily. But in the OJ,
If the glove don't fit,
case,
you must acquit. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, it's an odd. Whenever I learned OJ was a Scientologist, I was like, well, what the fuck? Why would they not include that in any previous detail about the guy? You know what I mean? So it's an odd bunch, those Scientologists, but nonetheless, yeah. I'm not sure what I'm doing next Wednesday night, so tune in, folks, to find out. And again, thanks for joining us here tonight. Any parting words, fellas?
The difference between the known and the unknown is the journey. Good journey, guys.
There you go.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.